Have you ever felt a surge of warmth, connection, or even arousal when your partner tells you what a good job you're doing? It's a powerful feeling, and it might be more than just a nice compliment. It could be a gateway to a deeper, more intimate, and incredibly affirming sexual dynamic known as a praise kink. Today, I'm sitting down with Raquel Van Loon, a certified sex therapist, certified sex addiction therapist, and a therapist at Modern Intimacy, to demystify the often misunderstood topic, moving it from the shadows of kink into the light of healthy, communicative relationships. So, she and I are going to explore why some people's brains light up for praise and how to talk about it with a partner, and why it's so much more than just being called a good girl or a good boy. Raquel, thanks for being here with me today.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, simply put, a praise kink is exactly what it sounds like. For example, if you have a praise kink, you may experience heightened arousal when either giving or receiving verbal praise, compliments, or even positive affirmations or appreciations. For somebody with this kink, praise doesn't necessarily just feel emotionally nice, it feels erotically charged. So, what I mean by that is that it's not just the words themselves, but it's also that dynamic of giving and receiving them that really creates that genuine turn on.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction because most folks enjoy being praised, but not everyone gets turned on by it. And that is really key.
From a clinical and neurobiological perspective, dopamine is really the key player in that brain's reward and motivation circuitry. And this is the system that reinforces behaviors that feel both pleasurable and validating. So, for example, if someone with a praise kink receives verbal affirmation, so this could be like, you're doing so well, you look so beautiful when you do that, or I love how you please me, the brain interprets that not just as a compliment, but also as a reward stimulus. And that dopamine surge can really heighten arousal, focus, and even emotional bonding. Basically, it's your brain saying, this feels good. I want more. Those everyday compliments really activate the social bonding circuit. So there's oxytocin and some dopamine release that's associated with this. So that really makes that like praise within a kink context. It includes that erotic charge, right? We all like to hear something nice about ourselves, but that praise kink really taps into that deeper circuit. And that's one where eroticism, validation, and neurochemistry combine. So, what it comes down to, it's not just about liking praise, but it's about craving that emotional and physiological feedback loop. And that helps us to feel desired, competent, and seen all at once. So, you can see how powerful that feels.
Totally. And the thing about the reward system in the brain is that once we get one little hit of that dopamine, we often want more. So it can really create a powerful feedback loop between partners.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really love that question because I think you're right. When with praise kinks, we usually tend to focus more on the receiver, but the partner, like the giver in that dynamic, they really experience something positive too, right? So, for example, if I'm the giver in this situation, like to see your partner light up in response to those words, the brain really gets that hit of dopamine and oxytocin. And so, again, like all in that reward system, it's that same pleasure response that we get from successfully connecting or eliciting joy in somebody else. Some examples that the giver may be experiencing in this context, right? The need to be in control, like the need to feel desired, respected, needed, depended on. It really has that different type of stimulation. And those power control dynamics are really activated here. So the giver is really able to, the giver of praise in this sense is really able to create that sense of pleasure, safety, arousal with their voice, right? Or the way that they show up for them. It can be really erotic and validating, like it almost intoxicating in that sense, right? Like if you think about it, it's that gift that keeps on giving. Both the giver of praise and the person receiving the praise, they feed off of each other. It's again that constant feedback loop of validation, desire, confidence, empathy, and all of that connection, it really strengthens not one side of the dynamic, but both of it.
And for the person giving the praise, so this person is likely in the topping position or the dom position, however they like to language it. It feels like for a lot of folks, a really interesting mix of responsibility and safety in being able to give praise in this way. So power becomes safe power, it becomes rewarding power, which can be really cathartic for people who maybe didn't always have safe examples of power in their lives growing up. So the benefits can contain multitudes.
Yeah, very much. It's equally pleasurable and enjoyable for each party. And I like the word that you use, safety. I think it's the safe component is really big with this.
Yeah.
Even with talking about clients, I like to validate, right? Like just start slow, take small steps toward what this would look like, and to really approach this from that aspect of curiosity rather than judgment. And it's really important in that sense to get clear on what you want. So if you can just take a moment and reflect on, well, what kind of praise is it that turns me on? What does it do for me? Those are like good starting points to be able to bring a conversation like this to your partner or partners. And I always invite or suggest to have a conversation like this outside of the bedroom, right? Don't do it in the middle of sex. It can be done right while you're on a walk, if you're cuddling, if you're chatting over a meal together. And some of these things that we can say is, I've been thinking about some of the things that turn me on, and I noticed that I really love it when you, and fill in the blank, or I really love it when you tell me that you like how I'm doing this, or I really love it when you put your hands right. Another example could be asking a question or asking permission to lean into this type of conversation. And this could look like, does it feel okay to share with you something that I've been noticing about myself sexually? And that can open the door for the conversation in that way. And another couple that I think of is you can use social media, blogs, some ethical porn or erotica as a bridge for this conversation. And that could look like, hey, I was reading this blog on praise kinks and I realized that I related to a lot of it. Would you like to read it? Or would you like to read this erotica that I found together? Would any of it sound fun to try out? And this way you're really getting their buy-in, and it helps to lean on something to be like, hey, I was looking at this. What would you think about introducing this to our sex life?
Yeah, I really like that suggestion because it also takes a lot of pressure off both partners to come up with all the ideas on their own. Because one of the things that people often struggle with as they're introducing a new kink is they maybe don't know the vocabulary they want to use to really affect the role they're trying to play or get into. So, a big part of what can feel tricky is I don't know what to say or when to say it or how to say it. So using some of those things that already exist can give people a lot of ideas to build off of and to say, wow, I really like that, or I like that, but with this adjustment, or I don't really like it when someone says that, but I think it could be cool if we tried this thing instead. So it gives people a starting point that I think is really helpful.
Yeah, 100%. And even hearing you say that, what I thought of is a yes, no, maybe list.
Yeah.
You can be like, yes, I would like to do this. This is a hard no for me. Helps you identify what your boundaries are. And then the maybe, exactly as you said, I like this aspect of it, but I would like to change this.
If anyone watching wants a free yes, no, maybe list, you can download it in the caption below. We'll have a link there.
I think what comes up for me is that it's true that praise can feel validating for people, but a praise kink doesn't mean that it's automatically about self-worth. Really, it's about how affirmation and validation interacts with arousal and intimacy. And what I mean by that is that what it really comes down to is that it's about deepening the connection, right? So rather than compensating for insecurity, a praise can actually both enhance an already healthy sense of self. It's more so about being seen, about being appreciated, and turned on by that recognition. And what I would say too, I want to add that even apart from self esteem, Praise kink is really about learning, exploring, and understanding both that sensual and sexual part of yourself. It can be a really intimate, sexy, and empowering experience that is its own separate entity from self-esteem.
I think that's really important to highlight because certainly any kind of kink can help transport us to an emotional state or a physiological state that's maybe a little bit more difficult to access in real life. But maybe what people get to access during a praise kink scenario is the ability to really receive without feeling like they have to owe someone or repay the favor, repay the compliment, right? There's a little bit of a different vibe when you're playing in the kink space versus receiving a compliment in real life, where you might just get to experience it in a way that makes it just a little bit more accessible.
I'll start low stakes and then I'll work my way up depending on where you are in your exploration. But low stakes, more less vulnerability and playful, you can use texting or voice messages. That way you can practice verbalizing the praise or kind of experience what it's like hearing it, maybe in a separate room from your partner. You can text things like, I can't stop thinking about how good you look today. Or you made me feel so calm when you talk like that. Or even, you're so good at making me feel wanted. And then just sit with that, right? Sit with how that makes you feel, sit with how it feels to say that if you're the one on the giving side of the praise. If you want to maybe bump it up a little bit to maybe a little bit more vulnerability, or when your partner is in the room with you, right? Cuddling or engaging in non-sexual touch. You can practice maybe eye gazing with your partner if that's something that feels comfortable, and even practice saying, I love how relaxed you get when you're close to me, or you feel so good in my arms, or you look so good in that. I love how
Mm.
comfortable we are when we're together. And you can see, I can even feel as I'm the difference between the texting and the cuddling, the how you amp it up a little bit. There's like that difference in the feeling around that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. I can feel
and then
that.
yeah, yeah. And then I would say if you want to start to give gentle introductions during foreplay, and of course when all parties feel ready, you can practice saying things like, you feel amazing when you move like that, or I love watching you enjoy yourself, or I love when you fill in the blank with whatever you're doing, but I love it when you do this,
Mm.
or you're doing such a good job, don't stop. So things like that they're good starting points. They're pretty concise and to the point, and you just get to play around with what feels good and you can expand on or adjust from there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing some of those getting started tips. I think one of the things to really remember, and I know you said this, is that
Mm.
none of this happens until people feel ready for it to happen. And they've talked about it, they've negotiated, they've come to agreements, and there's consent involved. But a really important part of any process of play is afterward, the aftercare and the debriefing that can come from, or that ought to come from any sort of kinky scene to help you transition back into your everyday lives, but also to give all parties involved an opportunity to check in around, how was that for you? How did you like
Mm.
it? What could I do differently? Okay, cool. And then switch. What could I do differently? Here's what I liked. Here's what I thought maybe I don't really prefer as much, and really informing in a very kind, tactful way how to keep improving the experiences together. Because look, kink or sex in general, really, but especially kink can be extra vulnerable. So give each other a lot of grace to experiment with the things that you don't know if you're going to or not, and expect that not everything is going to feel great the first time you do it or at all. And you get to talk with each other about how to make adjustments or fine tune the process so that you get closer and closer to where you want to be in the long run.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about play, right? Like it may be funny, it may be awkward, it may be messy, and you get to talk about it, right? About this is what I liked, and exactly as you said, this is what I want more of, this is what I want less of, and it really just makes that experience so much more unique to that relationship itself, and I think that's so special.
I do too. I do too. Thanks for talking about this with me today, Raquel. And folks, if you want to read
Yeah.
Raquel's blog, it's in the notes. If you want the free yes, no, maybe list down below, it's in the show notes. And if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And if this is something you want your partner to know about, feel free to forward them this video. Take care.